Human progress is built on brilliant ideas. It's also built on a massive pile of absolute garbage. We've dug through that pile to find 32 of the most baffling, brain-dead, and bizarrely real inventions ever created. This isn't the history of success. It's a carnival of catastrophic failures, and you have a front row seat. 1. In the unending quest for physical perfection, some folks try lotions, others go under the knife, and a select few apparently thought the answer was a medieval torture apparatus designed to punch dents into their own cheeks. Enter the dimple stamper, a bizarre piece of headgear for those not blessed with natural facial indentations but desperate to fake it. This contraption was a wire frame you'd strap on, complete with 2 knobs that would press into your cheeks with unyielding force. The objective was to mechanically hammer a dimple into existence. The more probable result, however, was looking like you'd gotten into a fight with a very determined woodpecker. It's the kind of DIY body modification that just screams, "My pain tolerance is high, but my understanding of human anatomy is critically low." Nothing says charming quite like a pair of perfectly circular, self-inflicted bruises. 2. During the late 19th century, quality family time was a cherished ideal. So cherished, in fact, that one inventor decided it should never be interrupted, not even by a mother's endless domestic chores. The proposed solution? The family bicycle. This wasn't your standard tandem bike. It was a 4-person beast engineered for family outings, featuring one truly bewildering modification: a fully functional sewing machine station positioned right in the middle. While Dad handled the steering and the children enjoyed the scenery, Mom could be pedaling and simultaneously hemming pants or darning socks. It stands as a glorious monument to Victorian multitasking and casual misogyny. Enjoy the beautiful day, my dear, but don't you dare forget we're running low on handkerchiefs. It was less a bicycle and more a mobile garment factory on wheels, perfectly illustrating an era when a woman's work was never, ever done, not even during so-called leisure time. 3. In the early years of the automobile, the safety of pedestrians was a growing concern. One of the more creative solutions was the pedestrian safety net. This device was a massive scoop-like contraption attached to the front of a car, resembling a snowplow made from a fishing trawler's net. The theory was that if you were about to collide with someone, this net would gently catch them, scooping them up like a prize salmon, thus preventing serious injury. In practice, it was far more likely to shatter their legs before launching them skyward. It's a beautifully naive invention, born from the assumption that a collision with a 2-ton steel machine could be a soft and pleasant experience. It wasn't a safety feature. It was a human-sized catapult that turned a minor fender bender into an impromptu and probably fatal circus performance. 4. You have to love America, the country where we identify a problem that absolutely no one has, and then engineer an absurdly complicated solution for it. I give you the motorized spaghetti fork. This is for the individual who has experienced the excruciating, sweat-drenched labor of rotating their own wrist and declared, "Never again." This battery-operated utensil spins automatically, theoretically winding your pasta into a perfect, tidy bite. In reality, it was an erratic food-flinging catapult. One clumsy move, and you've just decorated the ceiling with bolognese or launched a meatball into your dinner companion's lap. It's the culinary equivalent of using a jet engine to blow out a birthday candle. This isn't just about laziness. It's a profound statement about the ridiculous lengths we'll go to avoid even the slightest physical effort. 5. For the smoker, who is also a hardcore survivalist and possibly nocturnal, we proudly present the solar-powered lighter. This was a compact, pocket-sized gadget that was essentially a powerful magnifying glass, designed to focus the sun's rays to ignite your cigarette. It was environmentally friendly, required no fuel, and was completely, utterly useless for roughly half of every day, and 100% of the time you were indoors, or it was cloudy. Just imagine the sheer frustration. You're desperate for a smoke, but it's after sundown. No luck, a storm rolls in. Forget about it. You're in a cozy, dimly lit pub. Too bad. It was the ultimate test of an addict's patience, a lighter that only functioned under absolutely perfect atmospheric conditions, making it the least reliable tool ever devised for feeding a habit. A true victory for green technology over basic logic. 6. In our modern era, parents track their children with GPS and swaddle them in foam padding just for a trip to the playground. But back in the 1930s, they embraced a more, let's say, laissez-faire approach to childcare. I present to you the baby cage. No, that's not a metaphor. It was a literal wire mesh box that you would bolt to the exterior of your apartment window, allowing you to hang your infant out to air dry, several stories above the unforgiving concrete pavement. Marketed as a clever way for city-dwelling babies to get fresh air and sunshine, it was also an excellent opportunity for them to become intimately acquainted with aggressive pigeons, industrial smog, and the fundamental principles of gravity. Can you picture the conversations between neighbors? "Good morning, Beatrice. Just giving little Arthur his daily airing. Let's hope a sudden gale doesn't kick up." It's a chilling relic from a generation that apparently viewed parenting with the same casual, high-risk attitude as betting on a horse race. 7. In the days before social media, capturing the perfect photograph required genuine dedication. And for one particular inventor, it also required a loaded firearm. Behold the revolver camera, a customized Colt 38 revolver with a tiny camera mounted to its frame, cleverly engineered to snap a picture a split second before the bullet was fired. This was not intended for your typical family portraits, unless your family name happened to be Soprano. The purported goal was to capture the raw, unfiltered emotion on a person's face in their final living moments. It's the ultimate photobomb. Imagine the sales pitch. Ideal for war correspondents, private eyes, or anyone looking to create a truly permanent memory for their subject. This wasn't just a camera. It was a morbid art installation that merged the hobbies of photography and homicide into one terrifyingly effective device. Say cheese, and farewell. 8. Few things in life are more irritating than raindrops on your eyeglasses. A sensible person might use a microfiber cloth. A truly unhinged genius, however, invents eyeglass wipers. This was a miniature set of windshield wipers, either hand-cranked or battery-powered, designed to be mounted directly onto your spectacles. Picture yourself in a serious corporate meeting. As you lean forward to emphasize a critical point, you casually flick a switch, and the tiny wipers on your face begin to squeak back and forth across your lenses. It's a solution so over-engineered, so wonderfully absurd, that it moves beyond mere impracticality and becomes a piece of performance art. It is the perfect accessory for anyone who wishes to announce to the world, "Yes, I am this ridiculous," and "No, I will not be elaborating further." 9. The 1960s were a golden age of unbridled innovation, a time when "is this a good idea?" was a question rarely asked. This chaotic spirit is perfectly embodied by the motorized skates. These weren't just ordinary roller skates. They were roller skates powered by a compact, two-stroke gasoline engine that you wore on your back, like a lawnmower-powered jetpack for the profoundly lazy. A handheld clutch gave you control over your velocity as you rocketed down the sidewalk, leaving a trail of blue smoke in your wake. What could possibly go wrong? Besides the utter absence of a reliable braking system, the precarious center of gravity, and the small detail of having a container of highly flammable fuel strapped directly to your back. It was a glorious, unholy union of personal mobility and certain bodily harm, a product from an era when safety regulations was just a suggestion. 10. In our hyper-connected world, finding a moment of quiet focus can feel impossible. But one inventor back in 1925 took the search for concentration to a new level of nightmarish absurdity with the isolator helmet. This was a horrifying brass contraption you wore on your head to completely seal yourself off from all external sights and sounds. It was soundproofed, featured a tiny slit for minimal vision, and even came with its own oxygen supply because, apparently, the sound of your own breathing was also a potential distraction. You'd be sitting at your desk looking like a steampunk beekeeper in the middle of a personal crisis. It promised to skyrocket productivity by eliminating distractions, but it also eliminated your ability to see, hear, and maintain any semblance of human dignity. It's the ideal device for the employee who wants to achieve a state of pure, soul-crushing efficiency. 11. Back in the 1930s, the term radioactive didn't immediately bring to mind images of mushroom clouds and horrific illness. Instead, it was synonymous with modern, scientific, and even luxurious. This bizarre perception led to the creation of Thoradia, a French brand of beauty products whose primary selling point was its inclusion of thorium and radium. The marketing promised a radiant, youthful glow, and it wasn't lying. Women were enthusiastically smearing radioactive compounds on their faces daily, all in the name of a better complexion. This wasn't a subtle shimmer. This was a, "you are now a low-level source of ionizing radiation" kind of glow. It's a terrifying look back at a time when the pursuit of beauty involved applying ingredients that would make a modern scientist run for a lead-lined bunker. The ultimate beauty hack was, apparently, a slow, well-lit decay. 12. Any kid who grew up on spy movies dreamed of owning a shoe phone. It was the absolute peak of cool, clandestine gadgetry. Then, someone in the 1980s actually manufactured one for the general public, and the world collectively realized it was a profoundly disgusting idea. The sneaker phone was a very real product that embedded a telephone handset into the sole of a chunky athletic shoe. To place or answer a call, you had to physically remove your shoe and hold it against your head. Let's just pause and consider that. You are pressing an item that has been in direct contact with gum-stained sidewalks, questionable puddles, and your own foot sweat right against your face. It's a marvel of inconvenient and unhygienic design. It remains the only telecommunications device that forced you to weigh the importance of a call against the risk of getting a skin infection. 13. Being stuck in traffic is a universal misery. You're trapped behind a massive truck, completely blind to the road ahead. A rational person might exercise a little patience. An inventor from the 1950s with no patience whatsoever, however, created the car periscope. This was a ridiculously elaborate system of mirrors and tubes mounted to a car's roof, designed to let the driver see over the vehicle in front. The result made your family's sedan look like it was preparing for submarine warfare on the interstate. Imagine trying to merge onto a busy freeway while peering through a shaky, narrow tube that offers zero peripheral vision and completely messes with your depth perception. It's a solution that isn't just impractical, it's arguably more hazardous than the problem it claims to fix. It was a gadget that proudly announced, "My minor inconvenience is more important than the lives of everyone else on this road." 14. Long before smartphones gave us the gift of chronic neck pain, our ancestors had to find their own innovative ways to ruin their posture. Perhaps their crowning achievement in this field was the TV hat. This device was essentially a portable television jammed into a helmet so bulky and absurd it made you look like a background character from a low-budget sci-fi movie. It featured a gigantic antenna that stuck straight up, acting as a beacon for both poor reception and public ridicule. Just imagine trying to watch a grainy 2-inch screen while the weight of this plastic monstrosity slowly grinds your cervical spine into a fine powder. This wasn't just a piece of tech. It was a wearable statement that you had given up on life, had no sense of shame, and were about to become very familiar with your local physical therapist. 15. Picture the scene. You've survived a stressful day. All you desire is a few moments of quiet contemplation in the one room of the house meant for privacy. But as you reach for the toilet paper, your brief moment of peace is violently shattered by a cheap, electronic rendition of some forgotten polka tune. This is the special kind of horror delivered by the musical toilet paper holder. This device was clearly invented by someone who believed that silence was a problem that needed to be solved with technology. It is the ultimate gift for a person you secretly cannot stand. Every pull of the roll triggers a new, unwanted musical interlude, transforming a simple biological necessity into an inescapable concert. It's the kind of passive-aggressive home decor that makes visitors question not just your design choices, but your fundamental sanity. 16. The inflatable tie might be the most beautifully pathetic symbol of workplace despair ever conceived. At first glance, it looks like any other cheap polyester necktie, but cleverly hidden inside is a small valve, which allows the wearer to blow it up into a sad, lumpy pillow for a surreptitious nap at their desk. This is not an accessory for the rising star of the company. This is for Dave in logistics, a man whose soul was crushed by quarterly reports years ago and who now sees his life as a series of short naps between data entry tasks. The very act of inflating it, the weak, defeated puff of air from a broken man, is almost a work of art. The only thing more depressing is the slow, mournful hiss as it deflates, signaling that your break is over and it's time to become a cog in the machine once more. 17. We are all familiar with the humble shower cap. It is a simple, logical device. The shower hood, however, was for the person who looked at a shower cap and thought, "This simply isn't absurd or suffocating enough." This was a full-sized plastic bubble that enveloped your entire head and was sealed at the neck, making you look like an astronaut from a forgotten 1950s sci-fi movie preparing for a perilous mission to the bathroom. It was engineered to protect the towering, helmet-like hairstyles of the era, which were apparently more precious than the ability to breathe comfortably. Imagine the experience: the sound of your own frantic breathing echoing inside a plastic tomb, the outside world becoming a blurry, muffled nightmare, and the viewing port immediately fogging over. It wasn't a shower accessory, it was a personal sensory deprivation helmet that turned basic hygiene into a terrifying simulation of being trapped in a submerged vehicle. 18. Nothing communicates appreciation for a service rendered quite like a passive-aggressive robotic hand that silently demands a cash tribute. The automatic tip solicitor is a masterpiece of awkward social engineering. After a transaction, this small mechanical claw would emerge from its box, palm facing upwards, and simply wait. It possessed the cold, judgmental energy of a disappointed parent, watching you fail at a simple task. It would just sit there, a silent monument to your social obligation, holding your comfort hostage until you finally paid the ransom to make the creepy little appendage retreat. This is precisely how the machine uprising begins, not with a bang, but with a series of deeply uncomfortable and emotionally manipulative microtransactions that slowly chip away at our will to resist. 19. During World War II, the brightest minds on the planet were locked in a desperate race to create world-changing weapons. The Allies were developing the atomic bomb. The Germans had the V-2 rocket, and the renowned American psychologist B.F. Skinner had pigeons. That is not a joke. Project Pigeon was a very real, very strange military program to develop pigeon-guided bombs. The concept involved placing 3 trained pigeons in the nose cone of a missile. They would view the target on a small screen and had been trained to peck at it. Their combined pecking would then control the bomb's fins, steering it to its final destination. It was a flawless plan, provided you could convince a bird with a brain the size of a walnut to enlist as a suicidal bombardier. The project was eventually scrapped, likely after a general in the room finally asked, "Are we seriously about to entrust a multi-million-dollar weapon system to an animal that loses fights to statues?" 20. The daily task of making one's bed is, at worst, a minor inconvenience. For one inventor, however, it was a crisis that required an incredibly complex, potentially violent solution: the automatic bedmaking machine. This was a horrifying contraption of gears, rollers, and mechanical claws integrated directly into a bed frame. At the press of a button, it would spring to life and attempt to straighten the sheets and smooth the comforter. In practice, it would more often than not violently seize the bedding, devour the pillows, and trap the duvet in a relentless mechanical death grip. It was less of a household convenience and more of a daily wrestling match with a machine that seemed to have a deep, personal hatred for your linens. It's a textbook case of inventing a terrible solution for a problem that barely existed in the first place. 21. The treadmill. Bike is a piece of fitness equipment that feels like it was conceived by a committee that couldn't agree on anything. It takes 2 perfectly functional activities, running on a treadmill and riding a bicycle, and fuses them into a hybrid that is significantly worse than either one on its own. To make it move, you have to physically run on a small, integrated treadmill belt. It is an existential crisis on two wheels. You are engaged in the act of running, but you are stationary on the device, yet the entire assembly is moving forward through space. It brilliantly combines the soul-crushing monotony of a treadmill with the ever-present danger of falling off a bike into traffic. It is the perfect physical metaphor for having to work incredibly hard just to feel like you are barely getting anywhere in life. 22. For every great leap forward in human ingenuity, there is an equally spectacular story of human stupidity. The rocket-powered bicycle belongs firmly in that second category. Some inventor, presumably after binging a lifetime's worth of Roadrunner cartoons, decided that the one thing missing from the traditional bicycle was the raw, untamed power of a solid-fuel rocket engine. This machine was engineered for a single purpose: to accelerate from a complete stop to "I am now seeing through time" in about 3 seconds. Minor details like steering, braking, or the continued existence of the rider were clearly not a priority in the design phase. This was not a vehicle. It was a land-based, human-piloted missile. Any given journey had only two possible conclusions. You either ran out of fuel, or you ran into a tree with enough force to become a permanent part of its DNA. 23. Somewhere, in a laboratory late at night, a designer who harbored a deep-seated hatred for both fashion and common sense created the keyboard pants. This was not a prototype. It was a real product. A pair of jeans with a fully functional, flexible, QWERTY keyboard integrated across the thighs, complete with speakers in the back pockets and a mouse, located alarmingly close to the zipper. It was marketed to the tech entrepreneur who is too busy disrupting to open a laptop. Just imagine trying to write an email while navigating your own crotch with a mouse. Picture the TSA line. "Sir, I'm going to need you to explain why your pants have an escape key." Spilling coffee on your keyboard is a minor disaster. Spilling coffee on your keyboard pants is a sticky, potentially short-circuiting catastrophe of a whole new dimension. It's a fashion statement that screams, "My career is so important that I have surgically merged with my computer and I am no longer fit for human society." 24. There is a level of utter surrender to life's messiness that is almost inspiring, and that level is perfectly captured by the slipper broom. This is the official footwear for when you spot some dirt on the floor, and your immediate thought is, "I'll deal with that later, probably, maybe." You strap a miniature broom and dustpan to your feet and then just sort of shuffle around your home, hoping to accidentally clean something. In reality, you are not sweeping. You are just pushing a small pile of crumbs around in the world's most depressing and least effective dance routine. It's a product designed for the person who finds the simple act of bending at the waist to be a challenge on par with climbing Mount Everest. This is the kind of invention you order from a TV infomercial at 2 a.m., a decision born from equal parts exhaustion and a fleeting, desperate hope for a cleaner life. 25. For the person who desperately wants the health benefits of a sauna but finds the act of leaving their sofa to be an insurmountable obstacle, the portable sauna was created. This was essentially a personal sweat bag you would zip your entire body into, leaving only your head poking out of the top. You'd sit there, looking like a disembodied head floating above a brightly colored fabric box, slowly simmering in your own perspiration while catching up on daytime television. It promised all the detoxification of a luxury spa from the comfort of your own living room. In reality, you were just a human boil-in-a-bag meal, turning your den into a monument of lazy wellness. It's the perfect invention for someone who wants to ask the profound question, why bother improving myself when I can just sit here and gently cook? 26. There are two types of people in this world: those who see a baby crawling and think it's adorable, and those who see a baby crawling and think, now there's an inefficient floor buffer. For the second group, the baby mop was invented. This was a onesie, outfitted with microfiber dusting pads, ingeniously transforming your adorable infant into a semi-sentient, flesh-and-blood cleaning device. The sales pitch was simple: harness your baby's endless chaotic energy to achieve sparkling floors. Why buy a robot vacuum when you've already manufactured a small, clumsy human? The reality, of course, was that you were encouraging your child to systematically lick every dirty corner of your house, collecting dust bunnies, pet dander, and long-lost crumbs. It's less of an invention and more of a baby's first, unpaid internship in domestic sanitation. 27. When the British military was faced with breaching the formidable Atlantic Wall in World War II, their engineers didn't just think outside the box. They strapped rockets to the box and filled it with explosives. The result was the Great Panjandrum, one of the most magnificent and terrifyingly stupid weapons ever conceived. It was a gigantic, axle-like drum packed with explosives, bookended by two massive steel wheels lined with rockets. The idea was for it to race up the beach at highway speeds and blast through German defenses. In practice, the rockets would often misfire, turning it into an uncontrollable, 10-foot-tall pinwheel of death. It would careen wildly across the beach, chasing after horrified military brass and becoming a greater threat to the Allies than it ever was to the enemy. It was less a weapon of war and more a piece of high-budget explosive slapstick comedy. 28. The unreachable itch in the middle of your back is a fundamental flaw in the human design. Most of us just suffer in silence or find a convenient door frame. One inventor, however, decided this minor annoyance required a major technological intervention. Thus, the back scratcher helmet was born. This was a piece of headgear with a spring-loaded mechanical arm that hovered over your shoulder, ready to be deployed at a moment's notice. Imagine the scene. You're at work, you feel a tickle, and you activate a bizarre contraption that makes you look like a budget version of a comic book villain just to relieve it. It's the perfect device for the intensely private yet exhibitionistic individual. A machine that solves a tiny problem by creating a massive, socially awkward spectacle. It's a wearable declaration of both itchiness and profound loneliness. 29. There is a sacred list of foods that should never, under any circumstances, be packaged in a can. Near the very top of that list, just above cheeseburger, is bread. And yet, brown bread in a can exists, a culinary crime that continues to occupy shelf space in grocery stores. It emerges from its cylindrical prison with a wet, deeply disturbing sucking sound, revealing a dense, dark loaf permanently scarred with the ribbed texture of its metal home. Who is this for? Perhaps for the doomsday prepper who believes fresh-baked goods are a sign of weakness. Or perhaps it's for people who have simply lost the will to live. It's not really food. It's a perfectly preserved cylinder of sadness that tastes of molasses and quiet desperation. 30. The amphibious bicycle, also known as the cyclomer, is a beautiful example of a machine that attempts to be a jack of all trades and ends up being a master of absolutely none. This was a bicycle outfitted with enormous, hollow wheels that allowed it to, in theory, travel on both land and water. On solid ground, it was a heavy, awkward, and exhausting beast to pedal. But it truly revealed its uselessness on the water. It was painfully slow, completely at the mercy of the slightest breeze or current, and seemed specifically designed to capsize and drag its rider to the bottom of the lake. It was the ultimate compromise in transportation, offering all the speed of a slowly sinking log combined with the comfort and agility of a broken shopping cart. It was a guarantee of being miserable, no matter the terrain. 31. Automotive history is filled with bold leaps of imagination. And then there's the Monowheel, a vehicle that leaped so far it landed in a dimension of pure, unadulterated nonsense. Also known as the Dinosphere, this was a massive single-wheeled contraption in which the driver and a passenger sat inside the wheel itself, like a human hamster in a giant gas-powered ball. It was notoriously difficult to steer, offered virtually no forward visibility, and had a terrifying tendency to gerbil, an event where a sudden stop would cause the inner cabin to spin uncontrollably with the occupants trapped inside. While it looked like something out of a futuristic fantasy, as a practical vehicle, it was an unmitigated disaster. It solved the pressing question, how can we make driving more like being put inside a clothes dryer and kicked down a hill? 32. So, you've decided to lose weight. You could try eating healthier and exercising. Or you could take a more direct medieval approach and lock your mouth in a cage. Meet the anti-eating face mask, an invention for the person who has officially declared war on their own willpower. This device was a literal grid that you strapped to your head, making it physically impossible to fit solid food into your mouth. It looked less like a diet aid and more like something you'd wear to a prison transfer. Imagine trying to navigate a dinner party with this on. Oh, no thank you, I can't have any of the hors d'oeuvres. I'm wearing my face prison. This wasn't a weight loss tool. It was a social suicide vest that loudly announced to the world that you had lost all control and were now resorting to self-inflicted punishment. That's our collection of historical insanity, but the Museum of Bad Ideas is always expanding. We've shown you 32 exhibits, but the single dumbest invention in history might be one we completely overlooked. The real crime would be not knowing about it. So, what's the one catastrophic failure we failed to mention? Expose it in the comments below. If you appreciate a spectacular failure as much